continue our talk with a special person, one that just doesn't have an opinion but is willing to get up and fight for her opinion. It's too easy to say the system needs changed and there's these ways that should change it. It's not as easy when you have to get up and fight for your convictions. So let's start with an introduction.
Well, thank you for having me, first and foremost. And I would also like to thank all our residents from Milford for voting in the primary, which gives me an opportunity to sit down with you again because I was the Democratic nominee for Governor's Council. So I definitely would like to say thank you, and I have so much gratitude to even be here again to talk to you. And again, my name is Tamisha Civil. I'm running for Governor's Council. Governor's Council nominate judges. They nominate parole board members. They do commutation pardons. They also nominate clerk magistrates, notary public, and justice of the peace, and in any other public administrating position in the criminal justice system, or the judicial system, I should say. And, a little bit about me is that I'm an associate probation officer for the trial court of Massachusetts, where I help people re-enter into society, those who have been impacted by mental health, substance abuse, or those who committed crime and need supervision to go back into the community. I'm also a legal advocate for a domestic violence homeless shelter. And I started my career after getting my master's degree from Northeastern University in criminal justice and leadership with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, where I would navigate victims through the complexities of the criminal justice system as victims in the major felony unit. And I've been working in the trial court alongside of judges, police officers, prosecutors, clerk magistrates, and defense attorneys. Those are the people that we interact with on a daily basis in a courtroom. I'm sitting side by side with judges, giving them records of individuals who are coming in contact with individual in the justice system, as well as Section 35, where someone is petitioning for someone to get apprehended so they can get into a treatment facility, whether it's mental health or substance abuse. So with that all encompassed together, you have my experience, my education, and my lived experience is when my cousin was incarcerated for 27 years in the city of Boston for a crime that he did not commit. And he was exonerated from all his charges in 2021. And given all my experience, I've seen the good and I've seen the worst of the system. I decided to run for governor's council to make sure that I'm a voice, not only for my clients and every other individual in the district, as well as making sure that we have fair and impartial judges, right? Oftentimes, judges are coming from a corporate law background, and they have no understanding of what it means when it comes to someone who is battling with an addiction. Oftentimes, they will pick up a crime, and then they would be sent to jail, versus just putting them in a treatment program, looking at their board of probation record and saying, okay, I see drug charges, I see larceny. This person is feeding his addiction. How do we stop this individual picking up new crimes? And how do we help them get into treatment so that they can get back into society and be contributing members? And oftentimes I have my clients that come and tell me, please don't let the judge put me in jail. I'll just get worse. I'll lose my housing. I'll lose my job. I need help. And that's what I really want to do. Help individuals who are in the community that is either battling an addiction, mental health, but also helping our constituents to understand the importance that a judge have. It's a lifetime appointment. They retire at the age of 70, but once you're in, you're in. And judges have an immense amount of power. So we really need to pay attention who we're giving that power to. And that person with that power, do they understand people in the community? Do they understand it's a people's court? Do they understand that mental health and substance abuse is addiction? Mental health needs to be treated as something that you need medication. When you're off of medication, what can you can do anything, because you're not taking your medication the way that you should. So you feed it with other things, you cope it with other things. So, that's why I want to run for governor's council, to make sure that we have fair and impartial judges, but most importantly, that our constituents are being heard. I cannot tell you how many people that I've met with across our district. They know nothing about governor's council.
Yeah.
They know nothing about it. And on the ballot, it says counselor. So you go in, I know early voting starts Saturday, October 19th. And if you go and you look at the ballot, it'll say counselor. If you don't know, you don't know. You're just going to most likely circle the first name that you see. But I really believe it's an educational moment right now to educate people the importance of having judges that have the same ideologies and the same understanding as what people go through, because we're a human being. You're dealing with real people with real issues. And to have that power to decide the good or the bad of an individual, you really need to understand what's happening.
Now, you just came through a pretty challenging primary.
Absolutely.
Seemed like the herd was immense that you were trying to be selected from.
Right.
What made the difference that people picked you?
Getting out there, speaking to people, my experience, my hard work. There's 37 towns in our district. I made sure that I went out there to introduce myself and to educate everyone about governor's council. And I think our voters want real people to be in leadership positions that understand and that is competent enough to know when something is wrong. And I've worked for the criminal justice system in the trial court for the last decade. Nothing has ever been given to me. My parents came, they gave me a wonderful education. They said, Tamisha, I'm giving you where you need to go to get your education. It is up to you to make it for yourself. I went to Dover Sherborne Regional High School. I got my bachelor's degree in Johnson & Wales University. And then I went on to get my master's degree. I ran twice, in 2020 and 2022, came up short against a 30-year incumbent, but that didn't stop my hunger for being an advocate. I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself a public servant because I'm serving the community. I'm serving women and children that has been impacted by domestic violence. I'm serving my clients as a probation officer to make sure not only they're getting the treatment that they're supposed to, but following up with them, making sure that they're following the conditions that is set by a judge, making sure that they're on top of everything, finding employment if they don't have a job, continuing with their employment, sending me monthly reports to make sure that they're in the line that they're supposed to do. And I treat all my clients the same. I tell them that I want you to complete your probation successfully. I'm not here to condemn you for anything. We are all human beings. We make mistakes. Half of my clients, majority of them are great people, but make stupid mistakes based on how they were raised, based on the opportunities, based on what community they've come from. But most importantly, having someone to guide them, making sure that they don't turn back to where they once was. And that's the same thing with our history. We want to make sure we're not repeating history by putting people in positions that just want power, and they're not thinking about the lives of individuals that are in the community that needs help. And I stand by everything that I've done, and I'm a person of ethics, transparency. I need to know, as your next governor's council, and I'm asking for your vote November 5th, that I vet each nominee thoroughly, making sure that, one, they have not lost their law license for any reason, that their ideology is along the lines of our constituents, and that they respect and they understand that our reproductive rights is our business, and that women should have control over their own decisions when it comes to their bodies, and making sure that they're an advocate for all, and making sure that the equal justice is for everyone, regardless of your zip code, regardless of what you look like, regardless of how much money you have. Everyone who steps in the courtroom should be respected and treated equally as everyone. And we see so much how history has disenfranchised so many of us. So it starts today that we can make a change with the trajectory of the judicial system, especially on the governor's council. There's never been a woman of color in the district, never been a woman of color in District 2. Not saying that that's the most important thing, but when we want to represent everyone, we understand what representation is. We want to make sure every voice is counted. We want to make sure every group is counted. We need to start showing representation and what it looks like. And I'm just here to ask Milford residents for their vote because I'm here to serve them.
Now, what do you think is the biggest challenge you'll face on the Governor's Council?
Well, I do. The challenge is just learning who's I'm for myself, and this is my opinion, being able to voice my concern, and my concern can't change anything, but I think it starts from somewhere. You can challenge, I'll say, making sure that my constituents are aware of the public hearings, giving them the opportunity to know when hearing dates are happening, who are the judicial nominees, who is seeking to become a judge, and giving them that information with no reserve, and making sure that I'm transparent with them all the way. And how that information is sent out, that is something that I need to make sure that I can do.
Now, if I want to be a judge, how do I go about the process?
Well, first you have to be an attorney.
Because
Right.
you have to have a law degree.
You have to have a law degree, and the application is available on the state website. You apply for judgeship. It's a thorough process. It asks you a lot of information, and once you complete that application, it will go before the governor. They will pick and see whose application has made it with all the information and requirements that they've received, and then it will go to the council of 8 people. And then what we do is we will vet them, ask them questions. And I just don't want to ask questions that is a walk to the park. I want to ask them hard pressing questions. What do you think about reproductive rights? What do you think about justice reform? What do you think about people who have mental health? What are some of the organizations that you are affiliated with? What kind of volunteer work have you done? Do you know anyone that has suffered substance abuse, addiction, or mental health? Asking hard-pressing questions to really see what kind of answers I get, but also doing my due diligence and doing my research. Because the last thing I want to do is allow someone to have a power over someone's life, and they're nothing like what they present themselves to the council.
See, that's where I would get in trouble. Because I know that when I read about these people who abuse women, abuse children, or men, but
Yeah.
predominantly women or children, any compassion I have goes out the window for somebody who hurt a child.
Right. And as a victim witness advocate for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, I worked in the juvenile department, and it's that's something that I had to learn to overcome, because when I go to a SANE interview, it's like sexual assault interview for a child, and you have to, listen to a child telling you what happens. It breaks your heart, and as a mother, it breaks my heart, and it makes me even want to do my job even more. And that's why I take the governor's council position seriously, because we're putting people in power that can determine how people should be held accountable. I'm very victim driven, but it's not holding people accountable is the issue, making sure that we're making the right decisions. Like I told you, my cousin spent 27 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Shouldn't happen, but it's still happening. And people that I've met in the community are telling me they know someone or their loved one, it happens to them. And, it's good we have the Innocent Project. Those were one of the organizations that helped gather all the information to help my cousin get out. Now, when a that's where the clerk magistrate comes into play. The clerk magistrate is responsible of the docket, making sure that the police report is in there, making sure that a Rule 17 is in there, meaning any doctor's reports, making sure that there's a copy for probation, police officers, and the prosecutors. But what we don't want to do is having a judge just running off of face value. We need to make sure that all the evidence is presented. And if there is any loophole in a case, the judge should be able to decipher whether or not something is missing or is inconsistent. We want judges to be fair and impartial, but we also want them to look thoroughly on these cases so we don't have any mistakes as what happened to my cousin. But we definitely need to hold those accountable for their actions. And what that is by looking at the case, getting all the evidence, making sure that the prosecutors have all their ducks in a row, making sure that the testimonies from police officers, victims, and witness are up to par, so that the judge can make a clear reading of the case. And sometimes you won't find that.
Now, do you think people are becoming more sensitive to how important judicial appointments are? 'Cause,
Absolutely.
when I think of our president, 4 years, maybe 8, but they appoint or they nominate Supreme Court justices that could last decades.
Exactly.
And it feels like the same way for our governor.
Well, I mean, it can look like that. But when you are looking at the Supreme Court, it's a lifetime appointment. But the judicial point on a local level, state level, it's until the age of 70. But what I would like to do is those who are in positions such as a judicial appointee, I'd like to go back and review if there has been any mishandling in cases, if there's been any loopholes, or if the judge is violating any rights. I would like to see that. And you had posed that question before, if there would be an obstacle, and that would be one of them. And I think it's very important that people are paying attention to it now. If you look at the Karen Reed case, we're not going to go down the rabbit hole with that, but that has opened up a lot of people's eyes on how the judicial system works and how people are held accountable based on their positions. You find a lot of loopholes in her case. And, you find out when the defense team asks for a motion to dismiss the case due to the evidence that has been placed, some of the things that were said by victims and witnesses that doesn't seem right or seems a little bit out of touch with what can possibly or what really happened. It gives you an understanding on how important it is, one, to have a judge that can make the right decision when they see something is wrong. And it makes you think as well when the judge is not doing what you think they should be doing based on the evidence that was placed in front of them.
But now you make your best guess as to is this man or woman suitable for an appointment.
Right.
Is there any way you get 5-10 years down the line saying you're doing your job or you're not doing your job?
No.
So
It's
this is
until the
one bite
person-
at the apple.
Yes, until that person decides they no longer want to be the judge. They can stay until the age of 70.
70.
Or they can stay a little bit past 70 if there's a issue of filling a particular court and they've been there for a long time, which I've been able to see myself when I was working at a particular court. The judge was at that age to retire, but because he, one, loved his job, Two, there wasn't really someone who was presiding over him that they need to fill the seat. He stayed a little bit longer. There are some exceptions. However, the age is 70 for retirement, but you can definitely come off the bench or retire earlier if you choose to.
Now, the governor's council is made up of 8 people,
Absolutely, yes.
and is it just the Commonwealth sliced in 8 pieces?
It's, you got it right. Sliced in 8 pieces, and majority of the towns are in the 30s. I have 35, some have 36, some have 32, but I think my district is the most.
30 towns.
37.
37, even worse. How do you even get input from 37? I mean, Milford's got 30,000 people, and we're not a big town.
You're not, but I would love all the 30,000 votes if I can get it. But what I do is events that are happening, I just go and meet people. You be your authentic self, and I think that's what voters want. For someone who is compassionate enough to put themselves out there and say that, hi, my name's Tamisha. I'm running for governor's council, and this is what governor council is all about. And they'll listen to you. But if you don't tell them or educate them, they're not going to know. And I love education to the point where I love to educate people, and I love to be educated myself. So it's just getting out there and putting yourself out there and letting people know that you're running for office and this is why. And it sits with voters, and voters can see. Majority of the time during an election, you elect someone and then you never see them again, but when it comes to election time, they'll pop up here and there. I mean, I see it done all the time, but that's not me. Like I said, I'm a public servant, and I serve the community some way or somehow. Some of my clients are from Milford. Some of my clients are from Halifax. My clients are everywhere because it's Massachusetts Probation Services. So I'm serving anyone who's on probation in Massachusetts, regardless of where they're living. So I learn from people every single day, and I'm able to understand everyone from all walks of life. And that's just how I was raised. And I continue to have passion for everyone that I come, but it's important with this seat. We cannot I have a challenger, so I'm not giving it up without a fight, because this governor's council seat is too important to allow anyone who just has any political motives just to be there or to nominate their friends so that when they hear cases, they can go to that judge they nominate. And that's the cycle that it usually is. And you don't get an opportunity. You wonder if transparency will continue. You wonder if people are going to get a fair shot. And the criminal justice system can get better based on the person that you elect to represent you.
I hadn't thought about the fact that if I vote for you, I could come back to you in the future and say,
well, the criminal justice system is small, right? Say I nominate you, you're an attorney, and you're still practicing, you're representing clients in the district. There's a possibility we'll come across each other, and I will have to present, or you will have to present a case in front of me.
oh, wow, I hadn't thought of it from that end. I'm a practicing attorney. I come right in front of you and...
I'm not saying,
No,
but think about it. People are human. Think about it. You know what I mean? I'll probably give a couple of dates, for you to keep coming back. You're building your client. Your client doesn't know that you nominated me or I nominated you. I'm not a practicing attorney, so I have
Right.
nothing to gain. This job is only $35,000 a year. You meet once a week. But the good thing about this job is that you get to choose, you get to vet judicial nominees and parole board members to make sure that they're doing what they need to do as to be fair and partial.
This is a question I hope doesn't come off as mean, but how do you get it all done in a week? If you got 300 judges and 20% turnover, retire, whatever, that's still one a week.
So you don't listen to just one judge. It could be four 4 judges, or excuse me, 4 judicial nominees that you go before. It's an all-day process. So you say you work for 8 hours, right? You may have 8 people come in to be vetted
In a week.
in a week.
How do you get through 8? That's an hour a person.
Well, there's 8 people on the council, and people vet, we nominate, and then we huddle together and make a decision.
Just seems like an awful lot of work for 8
It-
hours.
It is, but think about the lives of the people that we, as constituents, that you want to make sure has someone that is leading them.
No, I'm amazed that
Right.
a position like governor's council that can affect my life for decades, why isn't it full time?
It's been like that for the longest.
Because I'd rather have you have too much time to look into somebody than,
Maybe, given the opportunity to serve the constituents in District 2, that is one thing I'd like to bring up to see why it's not,
well, I'm
maybe.
just thinking when you said, I go over the sergeants of the court, the guy with all the stripes, not the judge, not the officers, but the clerk magistrates.
Right.
To me, that man or woman is running the court operations.
They are,
So you're nominating
the judge,
the judge, you're nominating or evaluating the magistrate,
clerk magistrate, yeah.
all in 8 hours a week.
I think there's different days for each.
But on average, if you're doing 50, 60 judges a
Yeah.
year, it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Now, I go up, I fill in the application, the governor looks me over and decides, yes, I think I want to nominate him.
Yeah.
Comes before you, and you have a thumbs up or thumbs down option.
Yes.
What happens if you decide thumbs down?
Well, then I guess that's why 8 people are there. We
But-
reevaluate, and then it goes back to the governor.
But first of all, 8 scares the heck out of me. Because what happens, I'll ask later, 4-4 tie. Is it the lieutenant governor that breaks it?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But if you say no, if it comes down to 5-3 or better, and the governor's council says, we don't think this person is the right person,
Then the majority wins.
and the governor has no say then?
She'll probably give her opinion as to why, and, but we are there to advise and consent the governor. So,
So the governor still has 51% of the vote?
yeah.
Oh, okay. But it'd be hard to go against 8 people.
Right.
Now, I have a question on picking a judge. If I put in that I want to be a judge, is it just a generic judge? Or can I say, I know nothing about family law. So why would I want to be a family law court judge?
Because of the money and the power that you have.
Really?
I mean, it's based on the individual. Like I told you before, majority of them are corporate attorneys.
Well, that's what got me, Tamisha. Is like, I'm a corporate attorney. I know business law.
Right.
Does that make me qualified to deal with family law?
It doesn't make you qualified, but you still can become a judge because you applied for it. And it goes back to, it can be who you know. It can be just, giving your shot. Oh, I would like to be a judge. And depending on what position is available.
So it's not as much depending on my background, my knowledge, my experience.
Right.
I could be appointed a judge and serve in any judicial
Right.
court.
And I'm pretty sure there will be some training, or they usually have some mentors within the judicial system that they'll partner up with you and walk you through everything on how, this particular judge who's been there for a long time you can ask them questions on, well, how would you deal with this? Or how would you resolve this case? So there's, training, of course, but they would partner you up with a mentor where you won't have to be alone. And it can get repetitive with the certain kind of cases you get in a district court. So you start learning that way as well.
So now, if you win the election, how long do you serve?
Every 2 years, you have to run for a reelection.
That amazes me.
Hmm.
That just absolutely, it's like our representatives in Beacon Hill every 2 years.
Yeah.
How do you even get to know the job in 2 years?
I mean, if you have the passion, you'll find a way to go to the library, learn about the Governor's Council, how it started, what's the history about it. And that's what I plan on doing, given the opportunity to be the next Governor's Council for the district, is just going into history and learning about the mechanisms and how everything functions. But most importantly, the good thing about it is that I've been in the criminal justice system working in the trial court, so I know what to expect. I know the languages. I know what to see in a judicial nominee. I can tell about their temperament based on how they answer. So in my job, I work with judges every day, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. You pretty much start repeating the things that you pretty much know how they're going to answer on a case before they answer it, because you've been in that room with them for so long. So, which gives me the great advantage of understanding the role of a governor's council, because I've been I've been in the position to work alongside with them, and also other individuals such as a clerk magistrate, parole board member, attending grand juries, going into board hearings with a victim, and just your life experience and your education has prepared you to be in a position. And I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to serve with all my heart for the constituents in District 2.
Now, naive question, because luckily I can say I've not been in front of a judge,
Yeah,
but how important is the temperament of the judge?
it's very important, because then there's no biases, you know. Then they won't ask certain questions that may particularly offend someone. You know what I mean? For example, when a woman comes in and seeks for a restraining order, you know, you watch the judge's temperament, if he knows anything about domestic violence, how he asks the question, how he presents it. I mean, the court is a public room. You can either have everyone go outside and allow this woman who is afraid, to answer the questions that you have for her in order to get that restraining order. Do you ask her questions about what happened to you? How did it happen? You know what I mean? And to put this person who is vulnerable at that time, to expose herself to, a couple of people in the courtroom that she doesn't even know. So you see the temperament of the judge, because if they had sympathy and understanding, there's certain things that you would not do. So the temperament of a judge is very, very important when it comes to certain cases, how they react, what kind of questions they're asking someone in that courtroom.
I guess it's just experience, because I would be worried I'd ask the right question the wrong way.
Well, you learn, right? You learn.
'Cause if you
But if you are someone who has worked with women or worked with organizations that cater to domestic violence, then you will understand what kind of questions to ask. And you go by the statute, right? You have a statute you have to follow. And if it falls under that statute, then it should be easy. But that's why I say it's based, for me, asking a judicial nominee, what is their understanding of domestic violence, what organizations that you've worked with, gives me an understand that when a woman is crying for help, you'll believe them the first time. It's based on your experience. It's not just because you have a law degree, you should become a judge. It's not because you know someone you should become a judge. You should become a judge because you have an understanding that it's a hospital and people are coming for help, and those who need to be held accountable are being held accountable the right way, but you're also making a way that they're learning when you put them away. They're getting the resources while they're incarcerated so that when their time is up, they'll be prepared to get out and continue with their life. But you also want to make sure the victim is whole, that they've moved on from the incident, whether it's by counseling or therapy, communicating with them, holding the prosecutors accountable to reaching out to the victim to find out how they've moved forward since the incident happened. So, these are all keys, and it's all encompassed together.
Amazing. Because again, not knowing what to ask or how to ask, probably how to ask is more important.
Well, if you have sympathy, if you know what it means to, if you know what women go through when it comes to domestic violence, you should know it's not only physical, it's mental, emotional. It could be spiritual, it could be financial. So, based on these questions, if someone says, okay, I'll give you an example. If a woman is not working and their husband is abusing them by not, say, providing money for groceries in the house, and she constantly has to ask, but in order for her to get it, she needs to do something to get it. That's an abuse, financial abuse. So there are there are probing questions that you can ask, but it also starts about your experience in that particular issue. If you are aware of a particular issue, you know someone who has gone through domestic violence, or you work with organizations, you will know offhand certain questions to ask, or there's questions that you don't even ask. You just tell the person what's going on. Tell me. When did this happen? What evidence can you show me? You know what I mean?
You can't ask why.
I'm sorry?
You couldn't ask somebody, why were you abused?
No, you cannot ask, because
I mean,
nobody knows why you get abused. People just take advantage of people
That's what I say.
all the time.
Why
But
was a person sick enough to hurt somebody?
there could be many reasons, but you just focus on the individual that is seeking the help. You ask the individual, what happened to you? What did you do? What did this person do to you? Was there any bodily injury? What kind of injury happened? What did this individual do to you? And based on their answers, you will know.
I guess the experience is what counts, because then you can, and you can't take the emotion out of it.
No, you can't.
I mean, somebody's abused, you can't say, now let's just stick to the facts and
Right.
be analytical.
You have to be sympathetic. You have to allow this victim to know that you are listening to them. And you got to let the victim know that there is going to be a two-party hearing. So when a judge issues a restraining order, it is mandatory that the victim and the perpetrator comes back to court for a full hearing in 10 days. The perpetrator will get a chance to explain, and the victim will get an opportunity to say exactly what she said to the judge before when she received the restraining order. And then the judge will make a determination who's telling the truth. And I think that's the most important part, allowing both parties to be present, providing facts or evidence or any testimonies, and not just running with one side, but also making sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's when you have situations like this. And judges need to know that.
Well, I mean, I can see, Tamisha, I can't stand you anymore. I'm getting out of this marriage. I'm leaving.
Right.
Okay, it's up to you, as long as you take care of your kids. But I don't know that there's any reason for me to raise my hand to you.
You know, some people just don't know how to deal with their emotions. People hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. That's what I would say. Hurt people hurt people.
I guess that's something
And majority of the time, you hurt the people you love, whether you want to or not. So it's if this person have grown with violence in their home, then majority of the time there's a possibility they can reenact what they've seen when growing up.
so they become numb to it. Violence
Exactly.
is just something that
And
they
they think
accept.
it's okay. They think it's okay.
That's amazing. I don't know how I would be able to deal with it.
Well, as a legal advocate for a domestic violence homeless shelter, it's given me the opportunity to listen instead of speaking. Because my job is to make sure that you know and you have all the resources from Massachusetts Office of Victim Assistance, making sure that you are aware of your rights, making sure that you know what protections that are available to you in court, and most importantly, not being in a position to judge, and not being able to say, oh, she's not telling the truth. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that I walk you through the criminal legal system, give you all the resources that you have, and to allow the judge to make a decision based on the evidence that you have presented. And that's why it's important for judges to understand what domestic violence is and to make sure that they have experience working with organizations, understanding what people go through in the community. Because sometimes people just don't understand what people go through because they've never experienced it, whether it's professionally, physically, or in the community. So it's hard to even look into it and make a decision on certain things when you have no understanding of what that is.
You could be so naive because before we started this show and we started having our chief of police come on,
Mm-hmm.
the facts he was giving me about substance abuse
Right.
and families that need help
Mm-hmm.
stunned me.
I work with them all the time. I work with police officers all the time. And when they're looking for one of my clients to ask them questions, we get the facts and we go with the facts and we work together. When I was working for the Governor's Council, I'm sorry, when I was working for the Suffolk County District Attorney's
I was
Office.
going to say, not yet, not till
Not-
the election.
I know, right? I'm jumping the gun. When I was working for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, when we need to prepare a victim for grand jury, oftentimes we will meet with the police officer, we'll meet with the victim, and we would sit down and talk to them and have hours of interviewing with this victim to make sure that we have something to present to the grand jury. So, I understand exactly what the police officer is saying or the chief that came here because it's all the same thing. All the same thing.
Yeah, it's just amazing because we had a state-funded program to help families who need that transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And apparently, it's been saving thousands of issues
Right.
because now you don't have to take a police officer by himself or herself off
Right.
the line, and you're putting them paired up with a trained
Mm-hmm.
professional.
Yep. So I know exactly what you're saying. Again, when I was working for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, there was a BEST team. It's called BEST, BEST team. They would, depending on the call that they get, a police officer would go with like a mental health professional
Right.
to go along with them, and the officer would accompany the caseworker or the mental health professional.
And I was amazed because the program is working so well
Mm-hmm.
that they've been asked to go talk to other municipalities about it.
Yep.
And then the state sent the letters through saying, we really think you're doing a great job, but we can't fund it anymore.
And that's why we need the right people in office to advocate for things that the community need. Because at the end of the day, who's paying for it? The constituents.
Yeah.
So, that's why, again, I'm asking for all your votes on November 5th to vote for Tamisha Civil for Governor's Councilor, because we want to make sure those that are in leaderships are being held accountable, but also putting the right people in office that will continue to advocate for the voices of the people.
Now, the magistrates.
Mhm.
I mean, I understand the judge he or she has the power. They got 51% of every vote.
Right.
How much influence do the magistrates have?
They have a lot of influence because they're the ones that are in charge of making sure that that docket they receive is up to date and that all the information is in that docket to give to the judge, because the judge needs that docket to make a determination on how the case is going to be resolved. The clerk magistrate has the power to sign off on search warrants. When a police officer asks for a search warrant, before they can even get that warrant, they have to go through the clerk magistrate. The clerk magistrate has to read the police report in entirely, making front and back, making sure that there is enough evidence from the police officer to sign off on a warrant. And the clerk magistrate is responsible to have a two-party hearing before an arraignment to make sure that there is a hearing with the offender and the victim. And if there's enough evidence, then that offender will be arraigned in court in a couple of days.
And that's decided by the magistrate.
That is decided by the magistrate.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I think of the magistrate as like when you look at the Army, it's the guy with all the stripes.
Yeah. Well, they
You know.
have just as much. They get paid as almost the same as the judge.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, in a way, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it always amazes me when I think of our representatives making $60,000, $80,000 a year.
Clerk magistrate makes more.
Not that that's trivial, but I'd rather see him be making more, be full-time,
Mm-hmm.
and attract the most qualified. Because, you know, it's like our teachers.
Yeah. Teachers should definitely be getting paid more. And I learned that during COVID when I tried to teach my son. Well, you know, with the laptop, you know, going step by step. And I commended my son's teacher, and I thanked them so much, because being a teacher is not for the faint in heart, especially if you have several different students in your class. Each of them have a different learning capability, and they're the ones that's pouring into your child while you're working. They're the ones that are preparing them for the future. So when you think about what teachers are making, they should be making way more than some
See,
people.
and I'd love to see teachers work 12 months a year and fight for the right to be a teacher.
Mhm.
Whereas now, we've got a lot of people who would love to be teachers, but they can't afford it.
Exactly. I'm right with you on that. I'm in full agreement with you. I'm telling you, COVID opened my eyes and taught me how important teachers are.
And it's amazing because I always laugh. My French teacher in 8th grade, when I got back to Milford, when I moved back to Milford, she cornered me and said, "Do you remember what you said to me when you left 8th grade?" And I said, "Miss Long, no." She said, "You said, 'Why am I studying French? I'll never use it.'" And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Where did you just move from?" I said, "Paris."
Oh my goodness.
The fact that she remembered after 30 years
Wow.
opened my eyes to say, my
Teachers
God.
don't forget, especially if you made an impact in the classroom, or you had some special talent, or if you were a good student. Even if you weren't a good student, teachers remember every single thing.
You know, and it's amazing because my daughter teaches special needs.
Mm.
And she puts a lot of things into perspective where we were going through some issues on funding locally. And she said, "Dad, my job is to get every kid to their potential and maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But with special needs kids, not all the potentials are the same."
Right.
And it was profound when I thought about it and said, yeah, that is really what we're paying you for.
Mm-hmm.
Not to raise these kids,
Right.
but to educate them
Absolutely.
and get them to the next step. Well, we're coming to the end. Same question as before. Tamisha, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Why should you vote for me? Because of my lived experience, professional experience, and my education. I've seen the very worst, and I've seen the very best of the criminal and legal system. But we really need to make sure that the judges that we are nominating are upholding reproductive rights. We need to make sure that judges are fair and impartial. And we need to make sure that judges understand it's a people's court. And for decades, people have not been aware how much power a judge have. They can turn your life for good, and they can turn your life upside down. The judges can take your house away, they can take your children away, they can take your land away. So with that kind of immense power, we really need someone in the Governor's Council who's going to ask pressing questions, hard questions, and vet them thoroughly to make sure that their ideology represents the constituents of District 2. And that's why I'm asking for your vote. And I'm also asking for the vote of Milford residents. And I would love to earn your vote November 5th for Tamisha Civil.
And as always, I've always made the commitment that I'll never ask our 6 loyal viewers to vote for a specific candidate. But I'll beg you, become educated on the candidates and get out and vote. The worst thing in the world is to listen to somebody complaining about who's in an elected position and find out they never even voted. So please, November 5th is the most important day till the next election. But get out and vote. And as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Good luck
Thank you.
and good night.